Hello and welcome to 5-inch Floppy on GameArena.com.au. I'm Junglist. This week we wander right down the road to Sydney studio Epiphany Games, a longtime developer of technology for other studios who have somewhat under the radar been developing their first big PC title called Hearth. We were lucky enough to check out the game and speak to studio co-founder Morgan Lean.
So the studio started up basically with a group of friends who wanted to make games which they really wanted to play, games for gamers. Basically, we've been developing games and game tech for different companies and just built the company up organically. So recently on Gamebryo, we rebuilt the Gamebryo's deferred renderer in the Lightspeed engine. So that was a fairly substantial rewrite, and we've also built things like shadowing systems, terrain engines and environment systems that people can use in their games, and we have had a relationship with them. We have a source license for all their code, which was part of the deal, and we get a royalty for the engine development, and that really kick-started our studio and enabled us to tackle more ambitious sort of projects and also built the revenue base.
It's this type of work that has enabled Epiphany to finally make the game that they want, which is really more of a series of games, beginning with an RTS, then a buddy RPG, and finally an MMO. RTS is one of the harder genres to pull off, and for a first PC game, an ambitious undertaking. It's usually only attempted by the AAA. With around 15 employees, Epiphany occupies that dreaded middle ground. Not quite indie, not quite AAA, but doomed to be compared to the StarCrafts of the world. But there are a few interesting tricks Epiphany has been able to employ that allow them to punch above their weight.
The tech side of the company was all about developing technology and features for the games we wanted to make, which would eventually become very ambitious and massive games, like Hearth is a massive game. And the strategy behind that was really getting someone to engage with us and pay us to build the technology that we needed to build and build other games that would sustain the company. So we design everything that we can reuse it as much as we can, and we also design things that we can resell them as much as we can. So if somebody needs a particular feature and they're working on a game in Korea, we might end up building that feature for them and shipping it off to them. But that feature is probably something that we want as well. So Hearth's terrain engine is built on the terrain engine which we built for Emergent, and that was designed for MMOs. And we built that for them because we wanted that and they didn't have it. And that's really the crux of how we've survived as a small studio in Australia, is by basically building good stuff, using it, showing that it's really good, and using it and then reselling it and selling it to other studios. And most of the assets in Hearth can be used straight away in an RPG or an MMO. We actually save them at several resolutions, so we have really high res textures, we have medium res textures, and then we have game res textures. And same with the triangles and objects. So that sort of work smarter, not harder mentality is all the way through the company.
Thankfully, its size lets Epiphany have a fun culture that probably couldn't exist in a AAA zone. This is what they call a hard, an in-studio currency Lean can pay employees when he asks for features in the game, and something tangible they can keep representative of the work they've done for the studio. It's a currency Lean is now making more of, because Hearth is an RTS game with a lot of new features and ideas. We can start with its main influences, Dawn of War and Company of Heroes. Like those games, strategic points are captured throughout the map, which provide resources and putting the emphasis on military instead of economy. Also like those games, units are made in squads, which can reinforce when members die, retaining the experience they've gained. And like those games, there's an ability-focused hero unit who never truly dies, and there's probably more of an emphasis on this hero, which is why people are making comparisons to MOBA games such as LoL and Dota. But lead designer Sam Jensen says the key is using all the elements together.
This combination of base and army is almost like a character in itself, where you're not just building an army, you're sort of building up a character from the ground that just is made up of a whole bunch of squads, but is in effect a single kind of holistic unit that you then use in that kind of, in a role like a tank, a healer, or a DPS to fulfill that role, which is then kind of improved even further by the way that you build your hero. We've got so many skills and spells that you can't really possibly level up all the skills and spells in a given game. So you won't just have everything, which means that you need to make a selection about what you need to do with that hero that will best suit the kind of army that you've built. Either through buffing the guys around it, or by being the guy that does the most damage to the. We're kind of unafraid to say that the game is more focused at the core end of the market, like at gamers. I mean, having said that, you can still play with a less of a focus on micromanagement, but it really does reward those who kind of really focus on the micro. Like the hero has a lot of spells and abilities, yeah, but you'll see like the really advanced play is when people are using their hero like that, as they should be, as well as the individual units and their spells and abilities in concert with the way the hero does, and also with each other.
Frozen Hearth is unique in many ways. It's mostly a melee game, and the two factions, Celtic-like humans and a race of ice monsters, are fiercely asymmetrical. And it doesn't have much use for the typical rock, paper, scissors convention found in most RTS games. Instead, most of the focus is on ability micro. For example, Frozen Hearth has a Boar Rider unit, represented by this circle, with a knockdown ability that lasts 2 seconds. Say there are 5 of them. If they're all together in one group, using this ability will blow the cooldown for all of them at once, resulting in 2 seconds of knockdown. But if you had 5 groups and triggered the cooldown separately, you can effectively control that unit for over 10 seconds. This is one way Frozen Hearth aims to reward clever micro play. Instead of rock versus paper versus scissors, Frozen Hearth is more about, I've built my army around this micro technique, and you've gone for a different tactic, let's see who wins. There also aren't many hard counters to find in the game, where one unit demolishes another purely because of a numerical modifier applied. Obviously, innovation needs to be applied here, but is this too much change for an already difficult genre?
I don't think it made it harder. I think it made it better. RTSs have a lot of issues when you have to balance the fine line between what's fun and what's a fun tactic to, that really just does have to be nerfed, and you do have to pull that back. The second challenging aspect is technical, where you've got a large number of units and lots of things happening at once. And the third thing, I think RTS AIs are really quite hard to build because they're not just behavioural, but they have a strategic element to them as well. They have to make decisions. And our approach to AI was to sort of make it more like a player, try and make it so that it made choices, whether they were right or wrong choices. And getting that fun in an RTS is hard.
I think there's enough rock paper scissors games out there, which are fantastic. I mean, I'd say probably overall my favourite RTS game would have been StarCraft, and that seemed very much like rock paper scissors, the way that game played, just in having 3 different races that worked very differently, which was awesome. I love that about that game, but that's kind of not what we wanted to do. So we wanted to do something else. It has made movement AI a particularly large challenge. It's very different to the way that, if you look at the way squads fight other squads, even in Melee, in Dawn of War, when there's one guy that can't quite get into combat, he can mill around and shoot with a pistol or whatever and still kind of have a part of combat. That's been something that's not been available to us because it's mostly Melee, almost all Melee. So having the guys match up in combat and not look like they're just standing there doing nothing has been a real challenge.
What we really want from games is what we want as players. So to get that, we're not really going to compromise on, we're only going to make mobile titles, or we're only going to make this type of mod shooter game because that's easy for us to achieve. We're setting ourselves goals which are challenging, but if people jump on board with our games, they'll be rewarded, we'll be rewarded, and the games will just get better and better, and all the tech will be shared, and all that sort of stuff is where I see it.
Frozen Hearth will be dropping in the next few weeks for PC, on retail shelves across Australia, and select countries overseas. Epiphany Games also plans to release some of their development tools to make the game easily modifiable at a later date. The project is also on Steam's Greenlight service, so you can like and favorite it right now. Our thanks to Epiphany Games for allowing us to visit and check out their game. You can catch the Floppy next week, same time, same place.